And welcome back to Hannity. As we wait to see if President Obama will authorize military action against the Syrian regime, a fifth U.S. warship armed with cruise missiles is moving into the eastern Mediterranean Sea, giving military commanders more options if a military strike on Syria is indeed ordered. But the White House has said the goal of the military operation would not be for regime change. So what would the potential targets be? Now, cruise missiles have a range of nearly 1,000 miles, so our warships could hit targets anywhere in Syria without getting close enough to being hit by Syrian anti-ship missiles. Now, the country has many chemical facilities that could be on the target list, since the strike would be in retaliation to the chemical attack that the White House says was ordered by the Assad regime. Now, there are also missile production facilities that are potential targets to remove the delivery systems for Syria's chemical weapons, and various missile bases that could be hit as well, wiping out their ability to launch missiles. Here for a briefing on the potential military strike is retired four-star General Keane and former vice chief of the Army and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. Welcome, sir, to the program. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Sean.
All right, if you were called in and President Obama says, I want to go forward, I want to strike, but in a limited way, what targets would you suggest?
Well, frankly, I would take a strategic view of this and not think of it just as symbolism and punishing him for the use of chemical weapons. I think while there's a stated policy not to topple the regime, that's actually tipping the hat to the Brits because they insisted on that statement. The fact of the matter is there's much we can do to shift the momentum, which is now in Assad's favor, to the side of the opposition force, the moderate opposition force. One, provide them training, assistance, and arms. We can do that. They're geographically separated from the jihadists, and they are in the lead in the opposition forces now. Secondly, clearly what needs to be done is have Assad lose significant military capability as a result of what he has done. Don't spread these cruise missiles all over the place to the point where we don't concentrate and focus on reducing capability. The most vulnerable capability he has, and yet it's one of the most devastating capabilities he uses, is his air power. We can focus on that. 20-plus airfields, but only 6 of them are primary. Less than 100 airplanes take down the munitions, the fuel storage, the airplanes, crater the runway, take out the command and control on those 6 primary airfields, and his air power is reduced rather dramatically, and that begins to shift the momentum, plus arm the moderates with the kind of weapons they need.
All right, but
that
General,
would make some sense.
You talk about the moderates as though they would be the likely successor if, in fact, there was regime change. Now, I would have agreed with you. They would have been in the lead 30 months ago, the more secular pro-American forces there. But many of those forces now have disbanded and have been killed off, and it seems that the more likely successor would be radical Islamic jihadists with al-Qaeda ties. As Senator Paul agreed with me on that as well.
Well, you know, this is a huge misperception. There's a huge groupthink going on in terms of misinterpretation, erroneous information. Here are some facts, Sean. The fact of the matter is the moderates are in the lead. The fact of the matter is the jihadists have withdrawn to the north. They are not much in the fight anymore. They become very territorial. They're trying to impose Sharia law, 7th century Talibanism in the area in the north. They are geographically separated from the moderates. What the moderates need is the kind of resources that the jihadists were given early on. The Saudis have given them some weapons, to be sure, but not anywhere in near the numbers that they should be given. And actually, we are influencing the Saudis and not giving them all the weapons that they should be given, which is pretty ironic.
General, you have the most optimistic view that I've heard in terms of the moderates winning this conflict or battle on the other side of it. With all due respect, I don't mean any disrespect here, what if you are wrong? What if the radical Islamists come to power? Talk about destabilizing the region and the potential for greater conflict exists. Is that something, this civil war that's gone on for 30 months, do we even need to be involved in it?
Well, certainly, I'm not suggesting that I know what the outcome is. There is uncertainty out there. But I do know that there's much that we can do to assist the moderates. I find it rather hard to believe that tens of thousands of Syrians are fighting a brutal dictator. They're willing to take this guy on, They're outnumbered and outgunned to do it. They've been dying, 100,000 dead now, and you're going to tell me that a relatively small group, a few thousand foreign fighters are in their country, will take over the country, and they would stand for that?
Well,
given what they're willing to do against Assad, that's the logic that you're proposing to me? That doesn't make any sense.
General, I was probably one of 5 people in the public that predicted the Muslim Brotherhood would take over in Egypt after Mubarak was toppled and pushed out by President Obama. The radicalization in Syria, those numbers are very high. I think the numbers that would support Sharia law are far greater than what I suspect you're thinking.
Let me tell you, Sean, what is happening in the north where they are, I mean, the lack of accurate information about what we're talking about is stunning. What is happening in the north where they have become territorial and they're imposing 7th century Talibanism, they are almost daily demonstrations against them for it. The people do not accept that kind of a behavior modification change. It's similar to what took place in Anbar province in Iraq with the so-called awakening after the Al-Qaeda had imposed their will for more than 2 years on the Sunnis in that area. Very similar. Most of the Muslims and Islamists in the world do not want to kneel under the radical Islamist rule. That's the harsh reality of it.
All right, let's assume for a second that you're right and that people would prefer that. Can we not? We must factor in the ruthlessness in which the radical Islamists want to advance their caliphate and the methods that they would use to intimidate an entire population. And number 2, there is a risk, you're not denying, that whatever bombing we could be involved in could ultimately help them. You're not denying that, are you?
No, I think both could be strengthened by what's taking place, whether what Assad is doing and, of course, what we're doing. But I'm absolutely convinced in my own mind that this is an opportunity, Sean. I mean, we can make a laundry list like Senator Paul did and wring our hands about all the things that go wrong, and then we get paralyzed by the fear of adverse consequence. Frankly, this administration has been paralyzed by the fear of adverse consequence since they came into office, and that is why the Middle East is moving in the wrong direction. This is an opportunity for the United States to say, we are serious, we are not going to stand for this, and we're going to move this thing in the right direction. And I would hope that the administration would do it.
And you really believe a 3-day campaign of cruise missiles will accomplish that? I mean, I find that, and by the way, telegraphed cruise missile attack, you really think it would make that big a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you could do it in less than 3 days. If you have to understand the numbers and the targets and the capabilities. Listen, we are dead wrong in not having completed this strike already. In my mind, we should have informed the Congress, informed the UN, informed the allies who were willing, tell them what the delivery date was. If they can meet it, fine, and then strike. And here we are going through all this. This is not going to war. This is a limited military action similar to what Reagan did against Gaddafi, what Clinton did against the Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and what we did in Bosnia-Herzegovina. We are not committing this nation to war.
The only thing I'd say, General, I wish I was wrong on the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. I hope I'm wrong here, but I suspect I'm not, and that we could pave the way for another radical Islamic regime, and that would be devastating strategically to our partners and the geopolitical situation in the entire region. But
so you suggest we wring our hands and just do nothing? Is that what your recommendation is?
My recommendation right now, this civil war has been going on for 30 months, General. There's 100,000 dead. There's 250,000 refugees. You've got one extremist on the one side and extremists on the other. If anything, I think the United States' role should be humanitarian. That's it.
Well, then what about Iran and their strategic influence in the region?
What if we end up bringing al-Qaeda and a radical Islamic regime to power? That would be very dangerous, wouldn't it?
The only way to deal with the radicals, Sean, is to stand up to them, not roll over.